Roger Federer seemingly at his best in tournament finals. He's lost only 3 singles matches all year, a semi-finalist in the Australian and French Opens, and the Wimbledon champion, the 5th and most recent of his Grand Slam championships. In those 5 Grand Slam championships, he has dropped a total of 1 set. Federer has 9 championships this year. He's not lost a finals match since October 2003, a streak of 22 finals. To look at this #1 player, we say good evening to a man synonymous with this sport, Rod Laver. He's the only man in the history of tennis to win 2 season Grand Slams, 11 Grand Slam tournament titles, a national hero in his native Australia, where the site of the Australian Open bears his name. Steve Bellamy is the president and the founder of the Tennis Channel, and we welcome you both, gentlemen. Rod, in a historical sense, we hear analogies, we hear names. Historically, Federer right now, how good is he?
Boy, it's amazing how well he is playing. To come off and win like 20 finals in a row, to win on all surfaces, it's quite incredible. He's got so much talent. His ability to know the person he's playing against, just his own ability to play the shots. He does these shots that are genius shots. Makes them look like everyday shots. So he certainly has got all the abilities in the world, and I think the main thing is that he just plays well under pressure, and that's the thing that takes him apart from all the other players.
Well, Rod, we hear some people say the phrase greatest of all times. He's only 24. When you hear that, what would you say to that?
Well, he's certainly capable of making it, but I think at this age he's probably a little bit too young for anybody to be saying that, but he certainly has got all the shots. He's got everything that anybody would want as a tennis player. So I'd say, you know, let's let him get further on down the line and say that he's the greatest person that ever played the game. I think he's certainly capable of it. You know, whether you look at you know, Pete Sampras, who I thought when he came along, he had to be the greatest person you ever saw play. But Roger's got all the shots and certainly capable of being a great player, and hopefully he'll continue with his game. He loves the game, he respects the game, and I think that's one of the big feelings that he seems to protrude, was the great shot maker. He's a great player.
Steve, when you hear that phrase, greatest of all times, how does that register with you?
I think on a relative basis that you couldn't make that argument yet, you know, with respect due to Pete Sampras and Rod and so many other great players. On an absolute basis, I think unequivocally Roger is the most talented, greatest player of all time. I think tennis in general, the bar has just been raised so high, and he's the top of it. So I think he's actually one of the greatest athletes in the history of sports.
Why is it then, Steve, that so few people in the general sporting public are just now beginning to learn about this guy when he's accomplished so much already?
I think he is not a person who is going out and seeking attention. He is a person that warrants attention. And so the gestation period is probably a little longer, and it's coming on now. But I tell you, every radio show, every television show I do, he's the whole subject matter. So he'll get there very shortly.
Rod, what about his relative anonymity?
Yeah, no, it's going to be unbelievable. You know, I just think, going back to what Steve said, that you know, when Pete Sampras was you know, playing and he had the first 2 or 3 Wimbledons under his belt, they said he was boring, and they didn't really acknowledge the fact that he was just a wonderful tennis player. And when he gets past a little bit further and he gets to be 29 or 30, then all of a sudden people are saying, God, he may be the best player that ever lived. And I think that's the same way with someone like Roger, is that he's going to be, you know, just cruising along, winning tournaments, not saying too much, but letting his racket do all the talking.
But Steve, we've seen the history of tennis. With top of the show, we showed Connors, we showed McEnroe. People remember the fiery outbursts. People related to them, reacted to them. When you have a guy who is unfailingly civil like this, while it's on an interpersonal level, it's a lovely thing. What does that do to promote the sport?
You know, he does a lot to promote the sport. He is not your typical...
But not having a fiery guy out there, though, does that maybe hurt the promotion of getting him out there in the persona, that people know who he is?
You know, every band plays different songs and different music, and he does it differently. I have seen him tell stories about his pet cow, and he melts everybody in the room. I mean, this guy has charisma and charm, and you know, he lets his racket do the talking. It's different. It's much different than the way Pete was. You know, Pete was great for what he did. Roger is great for what he does. But Roger really really amps it up in terms of being just humble and out there and available for everyone and super nice to everyone. He's going to be a star that's gigantic because of that.
Rod,
Steve, I think that the one thing I thought, Steve, is that Roger needs a challenger. It needs a competitor to have a challenge. And if Nadal may be a great challenge, and I think Roddick is a challenge. And so you're going to have a competitive juices there, and that will expand and make the tennis game and the world understand how good these players are, not just one player being great, beating and winning tournaments. It'll be the competition that every player he plays. Say, well, someone will say, did you see that match they played on Sunday? And all of a sudden, a few of those go by, and next thing you're going to have a challenge. And I think that's important for the game of tennis.
I think you're going to have a bifurcation between the grass and hard courts and the clay courts. So Nadal and those players are going to always push Roger, especially Nadal, on clay. And then on hard and grass, you know, Andy and Leighton and a few of these other guys are always going to be there in the last weekend playing him. And the rivalries will be different, but they'll be great. And so it now begins in New York City in 2005. Rod Laver, a treat to have you with us. Thanks so much. And Steve Bellamy, we appreciate your time as well. Thank you. Thanks so much.